up, Naz? Mac. Mouse clicks. Okay. No problem. Cool. What's going on, everyone? Coffee.
Let's see. There we go.
Hey.
It took a little while because Zoom was updating. So yeah.
Oh, that's all right.
As I fired it up. Yep.
I had to reauthorize my XSplit into Twitch. So yeah, I started like 747 instead of what I normally do. I was like, what? I guess.
Yep. Some
More
days
levels
like
of
that.
security, I guess.
Yep.
You know.
Well, they don't want stream hijacked and stuff like that. Yep. So, are you ready?
Well, as much as I'm going to be. I mean,
for one of these academic kind of deep
yes,
dives. Yeah.
I'm going to be listening a lot because this is
Okay.
this is out of my wheelhouse, but that's okay.
Yeah, this could be fun. This could be a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Just gonna open things here. Yep.
Cool.
I haven't seen. I've been had my head in a lot of other stuff, so I haven't seen any of Blue Box today. Was it good?
I caught only
so
like
interesting.
15, yeah, I caught only a little bit because I was just I was doing so many things with my son and stuff today. So I just got
Yeah, it was like it seemed to be a really interesting topic with homebrew and using a setting in homebrews. That was like, oh, I wanted to see that.
Yeah, it was cool. Just I wish I could have caught more, but just
I can't. He put them on YouTube, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So no Mike, everyone tonight. Mike's got a family thing going on, which is okay.
To log into everything on Twitch.
Hopefully everyone's doing well and the holidays going well.
Yeah, mine is going better and better. So
That's good. You're feeling a lot better.
Oh yeah, I feel like I'm fully back now, so it's good. Yeah.
What, the Oliver Brothers or whatever that is, Mac? Right, that's the one you're talking about, right? People floating rafts full of trade goods. Oh, I thought you were talking about their adventures.
Hello, David. Yep. Oh yes, we are going to do people floating, down rafts and stuff. Yep.
Exactly. So true. So true about them. Awesome. Hey, Michael. Hey, what's up, Neil?
Hello.
What button? How about this one? We're running a little behind, but we're good. See, that's up for conjecture there on the northern part of the Selentine fellas, because, you know, Anna's got it as a canal almost, right? You know, so you're saying only Rennie barges are used up there? I don't know about that.
A canal is a good thing if they can be used by anything, because it's not no stream, so you can go up and down. That's the beauty of a canal. You can go both ways.
Yeah. Just because of how weird the map looks there.
Yep. So I'm going to try and sort it out. So I'm going to try, when I map that in detail, to give people the option of one or the other, depending on how they want it in your camp. So I might actually do two versions of it, just to
two versions of what? I'm sorry?
Of Celinta, to do two versions or something, so I can facilitate whether you want to, so to speak. So yeah.
Right.
And the canal, the upper part north of Greyhawk will basically be a bay of Near-Döv, so to speak. So that almost the whole way will be that way. So I cannot like it that way, because that will make Greyhawk effectively or near a port city on the Near-Döv.
Vancouver.
Which I think it makes it much more usable in a lot of sense. That the rivalry between Greyhawk and Hardby, there's many sides to it, and that is one of the things we need to bring up tonight. Yep.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Hardby's the sea. You know.
Because I see them as complementary as much as rivals.
Yep.
Oh, cool! You put in the Christmas cards from Troll Lords. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And I made a little minor change that a lot of people noticed. See if
here comes Blue Box.
Oh, Blue Box is raiding in. What's up, John? All right. So everyone, I did make the change. Hey, Storycaster, here is the. I'm trying to get through that. When I get through this, I'll. Yeah, exactly. Katana, you're on it all the time, man. How do you do that? How do you do you read my mind or something? It's a little disturbing. Yes, but I have to change. So
he has hacked your mind. Yep.
Yeah, definitely has hacked me. So thanks, John. Oh, I almost got a hype train already. Wow. I'll go to the entry screens real quick since we're running a little late here. All right, we got the 2022 on that. So yeah, here comes the little change. Oh, it says 43 already. So I'm a few days early. Got 2 streams to do this year, and then we'll be on here 43. Yeah, change the 43, yay! Thanks. It was awesome. And that was a Gavin, by the way. Rex Ellis, I'm just splitting hairs there. Alright, Greyhawk trade routes. I'm all conjecture on this discussion tonight, so this is I said, out of my wheelhouse. Let's have some fun with it. Just like we did with the trade discussion. I do have some of the probably the most important books is the Free City Greyhawk box set books. I'm thinking so.
Yeah, we've done economy and politics before. Now we do trade, so it's part of that kind of deep dive into Greyhawk academics. Yeah.
So good evening, everyone. Here, let me get Blue Box's rating here. I'm J.K. Lucas. With me, Adam Meyer tonight. Mike.
Hello.
Good old Mike. Greyhawk Mike had a had a family commitment, so he was not available for this evening. But we could still enjoy this discussion. So hopefully everyone's doing well. I really appreciate everyone's reach out here. Um, last Legends of Lore of the year, not the last stream of the year. Tomorrow night's last stream of the year, where we have a nice game going on with only one of my regular players, and at least Bones and Darling playing, and then we'll see who else is jumping in. Some people like Chuck Cumbo hasn't given me.
So it's not a normal game session. It's a little bit of a special one then.
Right, it's a little bit of a special one tomorrow night. It's a one-shot, but it's out of Norwell, so it'll be fun. But we'll talk about that coming up.
Cool.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. So, everyone, tonight, let's talk trade. Now, we did have a politics one. We did have an economics one.
Yeah.
We're talking the trade.
It's part of that academic series of bringing up kind of more kind of deep dive into more almost kind of academic topics about Greyhawk. And once in a while, and this one is a good one too. And just like economics and politics, I think a lot of this could affect how you set up your campaign. It can affect your play and stuff like that in different ways depending on your play style. Again, it's very play style dependent how this will affect you in your campaign and what you can use of it, so to speak. But I think there is aspects of trade that almost, regardless of your play style, you can use different facets of trade, so to speak, in your campaigns.
And you may not even realize you're using it. It's just it's like a natural thing. By the way, so I said to give away. We're talking about we're doing some classic D&D reprints. I have some good ones still. I have Scarlet Brotherhood here. That's a good one. I got some other really nice ones here. I still have a Shokanth too. Oh, cool. I can't give this one away yet.
Oh no, you have to keep it for
I do have my original copy, but
that will go for the charity stream.
Yeah. Definitely want to protect it. All right, so where do we begin on this discussion?
I was thinking, I put down some notes here on. So I went back to my political science and my international economy textbooks and stuff like that to see because I want to tie in a little bit to real world stuff and then see how we can implement these things in a fantasy world, so to speak. Because there are things that I think will work the same in a fantasy world, and then there are things that are different in a fantasy world where you have magics and all sorts of stuff that are different. But let's first have a little bit of a definition what we mean by trade and what constitutes it, so to speak. And first you have meaning for trade, you need certain things in order to facilitate trade. First, you need goods or services. And in the real world, in old times, it was usually goods that you trade. But today, and even back then, some of it can also be a trade in services as much as goods. But I think in fantasy, like in Greyhawk, it's more like medieval. So most of trade is physical goods of some sort, so to speak. But occasionally they can be trade, like you can actually trade in doing crafts and stuff like that. That's probably something that happens in big cities and stuff. You have artisans like smiths and stuff like that. But most of it is you actually have goods. The other thing that you need is some sort of trade is either based on barter, meaning I have something you want, you have something I want, and then we exchange it. That's barter trade. That's very common in old days, not so common in the real world these days, because you have something called currency. And there you have we know from D&D and stuff that we have our gold pieces and our silver pieces, platinum and stuff, and that is currency. But then you need something that is intangible, that is very keen for trade, and that is trust. You only trade with someone you trust, because you need them to trust that they will show up at a place, they will be peaceful, and they will be true to their word to some extent, that whatever they're coming to show you and trade with you, that they will not backstab you or stuff like that. So you need a certain level of trust. You don't need to be friends or anything, meaning in the real world, even enemies trade with each other. So that could definitely happen, but some sort of trust, meaning you need to understand I'm bringing valuables, then the other person will show up with something they want to do. So you need a basic kind of trust. It's meaning trade is at least a reasonably peaceful undertaking, so to speak, because both parties, it's something, if it's called trade, it's something that both parties want to done, and you have to agree on the terms. So it needs some sort of basic understanding. And those are the kind of the basics of trade. And I think those basics hold up even in a fantasy world, so to speak, that because then you have banditry and trade, but we come to that later, because but the basics of trade is a peaceful activity, at least reasonably peaceful activity. And both sides needs to kind of agree on the terms, at least reasonably, because not all trade is done on equal terms, but at least you want to at least somehow succumb to the terms, so to speak.
So I'm going to throw this back. I think
Yeah,
trust, it's not trust, it's more understanding of what the rules are, right? Because
exactly. But yeah,
yeah.
and rules can be, and that's another good point, because rules can either be institutionalized, meaning two countries come up with this, okay, we're going to set up the laws and the rules and the regulation, and then and our merchants and our populations, whatever, we can do trade on that. Or it can simply be we just show up once a year and then we work it out there, so to speak. You work it out deal by deal, or you set up rules. And that is because trade is such a essential part of economic growth. And I bet that is part in a fantasy world too. So if you look at the real world, trade rules are some of the most important part of politics. And I would assume that's part in a fantasy world too. So a lot of kings and potentates of all sorts will be very keen on setting up rules because they want to attract trade and they want to facilitate it. They want to skim taxes out of it and whatever. So the rules and the regulations and the traditions around trade are really important. But then there's trade that is more like, okay, we do this one-time deal and then we're not going to talk about it again, so to speak. So, and some trade is done in the secret and don't talk about it when you move into the more clandestine type of trade. And some of it is very open. It's the king's command and the king's rules and so on and so forth. So there's multiple levels of it, but it requires usually some sort of negotiations, rules, traditions, and stuff. Yeah.
And I think another point I was trying to make is
Yeah.
that the parties do not have to like each other, and that could
Exactly.
be
Yeah.
personal or that could be in general. And
Yeah.
I'll give you the number one thing in trade that happens in medieval or D&D or Greyhawk setting, and that is the dreaded money changer, right?
Yes.
Because they are
Yep.
going to make money off of just changing out your coin or your gems or whatever.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. And they usually, and most places, meaning trade often happens at certain places because both of convenience, because that's where you bring your stuff, and also because that's where you can find the most amount of buyers. Because if it's like some trade is simply you agree previously on price and all that, and then the transaction happens sometimes. But a lot of times you bring your goods to a market and then you stand there and put up a sign or yell out a price, and then prospective buyers go around and you barter and haggle and you find the right price, so to speak. So markets are today they are computerized and happen in more like everywhere, so to speak. But in medieval times, and I think in the fantasy world, they happened at certain places under certain circumstances. And since you bring a lot of wealth to one place, that is a target for all sorts of mischievous banditry or thuggery and stuff. So protecting these marketplaces requires resources, and that means that you usually have to pay a fee or a tax or something to bring your goods there. So but now I'm going ahead here a little bit, but yeah,
It's really really good. So
yeah,
on this discussion, let me
yeah,
make sure if I can find this because
yeah.
as we bounce around,
Oh yeah,
I'm
we will
all right.
definitely need to bounce
All
around
right,
here. Yep.
let me go here. All right, so let's go to Guilds of Greyhawk, and then
Yeah.
let's
I think you
find.
can find several that are attached to trade in one way or the
Yeah,
other. Money changers are
yeah.
one.
Here's one.
Yep.
All right, so there's a lot of them here, and
Yep.
the Merchants and Traders Union, right?
Yep.
That's a huge
hmm
one.
Yep.
And we can talk about it a little bit more here. So the Mint Workers Guild, the
Mm-hmm.
mint and money
Yep.
in
Yep.
Greyhawk. Hey,
Yep.
Lee Gwyn. And then this is the big one that what we're talking about: the Union of Money Changers and Pawnbrokers.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, and let's just take a look at something here. And it says these union members are effectively the city's bankers. Okay.
Yep.
Interest
Mm-hmm.
rates on loans vary with the risk of venture and the relative social standing and reputation of the borrower. Members of the union can normally expect to pay between 20 and 50% on top of the loan. Well, that just shows the level of graft and theft and stuff if they got to charge rates that high.
Yeah, but on the other hand, they can also provide services that are really useful.
Yep.
Let's say you are not only trading like a farmer bringing his little a few things, but let's say you're a big merchant and you have a whole shipload of stuff that costs, meaning we can talk many hundreds of, meaning we can talk enormous amount of money, really valuable stuff, and so on. And then if you want to buy that, you need to bring a lot of cash or gold or something to the market. That could be very sensitive. So instead of you hiring someone personally or carrying that around in chest full of gold and stuff that someone can borrow, you might simply use the banking services of them if you come to a big city, and you can simply order them, and they know you have the security and stuff, so you can secretly do it at some other time. You can put it out in multiple installments, put it to them for them to sit on it, and they can also be what in modern terms will be an escrow account. They will be the one that hand over the money to another representative and stuff, so you don't have to risk that. And if the money gets stolen, it's their problem, so to speak. But in order to facilitate that service, they require 10 or 15 or 20% even of the thing. But on the other hand, you don't need to get your neck on the line and so on and so forth. So it might be worth it if you're a businessman that handle large amount of gold or something in order to facilitate trade.
Yeah, here's a question to the audience, because I don't think I've
Yeah.
ever done this, and I always remember the movie Rob Roy, where
Mm-hmm.
he's insisting on a credit note, and they're going to trick him by giving him the one guy coin,
Yep.
and they kill him and take
Mm-hmm.
the money. But
Yep.
right here, credit notes issued by the union bear the union's official seal and are redeemable 100% of face value at the store as accredited union members. I've
Mm-hmm.
never issued a credit note
that
in
that that's
Greyhawk.
Yeah, and that is really interesting, and that is the thing that I think each of you as a DM in your campaign, you have to decide: is gold or precious metals and stuff, is that the only currency, or do you have other currency, meaning
Right.
like some sort of banknote? You can have magical scrolls, you can have or other stuff like that, sealed papers or something like that. You meaning and magic opens up some interesting things. You can say that a scroll with magical seals and stuff issued by someone, institution or someone in particular, might be as good as currency, so to speak. And there might be banks or equivalent, meaning you can have Church of Silchus, the temples of Silchus might issue these things as sort of divine scrolls that have the instead of transferring the money between one city to another or something, you can simply get one of these things and then have that sent, even teleported to, or you just carry that magical scroll that will tell that you are good for so and so much money because you deposited it there or something. So there are, and I think that's up to each. When you run your campaign, you have to decide how advanced economy you want to have in your campaign. I think it's and because there opens up, it can both complicate things, it can make things boring, but it can also opens up interesting possibilities for forgeries, for various weird stories and deep dives into things. So yeah.
So as this is on trade routes and stuff,
Yeah.
I noticed here a couple things, like for example, in this coinage, coins of for in Greyhawk City, Valuna, Furiandi, and Ernster, the coins are acceptable, but other states are not. Also,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I didn't even notice this, but it actually has right here. Where is it? It actually talked about the Luckies and all the other thing. Here they are: Greyhawk,
Mm-hmm.
Luckies, Orbs, Nobles, and Plates, which are in the Gord novels. but they're really not anywhere else, right? And that's the first time I even, all the years I've had this, I even
Hmm.
noted that they
Yeah.
were right there.
Yeah, it's because the D&D rules, they've simplified it, and some
Right.
versions of the rules had Electrum, but I
Right.
love those names. So I used to run with the and I used to being orbs. The gold pieces were round, and the other ones were the shapes and stuff. That's why they were called orbs and stuff. So I love that flavor from the Gord books, and I would love to. And someday I will sit and rewrite my whole rule notes so I can implement that. I also want the silver to be the standard, not the gold, because the silver is in the middle of the value, so to speak, and it's much better to have the middle coin being the standard and not the high up one, because that way you don't, meaning the platinums, you don't need to carry hundreds of thousands to buy a house or a castle or something. So I think it's much more realistic to have silver as the standard and not the gold. Pathfinder 2 reverted to silver standard and not the gold
Right.
standard for that reason, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's
So,
interesting.
yeah. But those are technicalities. But I think it's important. And if you write your own rule system, I would suggest that you make a silver base rather than or convert it rather than have a gold base.
Very cool. A lot of
Yep.
comments going in. If high value goods
Mm-hmm.
are more affordable in big cities, how does it affect the
Yeah.
trade routes? Good.
Exactly. That's the other thing. Both
Yeah.
inflation and different
Yeah.
price levels is something cool. And if you, especially if you read this one, each country that mints coins have different names and different signs on their coins. So if you look here, they have different names and stuff. And that is also something that could be used in a way that if you come with coins from a hostile country, for instance, you might have to basically go to a money changer, melt them down, and then make have them reminted in the local currency,
Wow.
of course with a fee in order to use them, or you have to use them clandestinely, because if you use them, then you might be taken as a spy or someone who's not trustworthy and stuff like that. So it can lead to all sorts of complications if you don't have the right currency. So that might be, and you can even have different gold standards, meaning you can have the common gold standard is the old Grey Kingdom gold standard, but maybe Keelland or the Becluni or something has another gold standard, and you can have that complicate things all of a sudden or something like that. So if you want to complicate this, you can to ninth degree, so to speak. And my advice is that to DMs, think about what kind of adventures you want to have, what stories you want to tell, and then complicate things that ties into the story, and then skip the rest of the complications. I think that's my advice.
All right, I got that popped up in case we need that in the future too. All right, cool.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, Nagoya Joe, I think you're right. That you need to look into your players, what kind of complications you want, so to speak. And my advice is that go with complications that help the story, and then skip the other ones, so to speak. But so there's some flexibility. But a little bit of this, I think, could be fun. Yeah.
Well, so a lot of good questions out there. Counters to
Yeah.
fool's gold, yes. What goods are traded? I mean, I think at this point,
Now we need
a
to,
lot more necessity than luxury items for the most part. I could be wrong, but you know,
yeah.
I guess.
And now we come to the exactly. That's the other side of this. Meaning, what do you trade? And you trade something that you have. You're willing to give away something that you have a surplus of. That's the first kind of thing. And you also usually get something that you need that you don't have, so to speak. So the basis of trade is usually, what someone has a surplus of something and a shortage of something else, and then they figure out someone who has the opposite. They have a surplus of something you have a shortage of, and then you that's the general basis of trade, so to speak. But then you have things that are traded because you have a curiosity in them. So remember back, a lot of things are traded either because they are precious, so they raise status and stuff. You can have things like fashionable items like silk, meaning better fabrics and stuff. They don't necessarily do any real good for society. They're not silk, for instance. Silk is not really warmer than exactly an ivory and things like that. It's mainly there to show off and to raise when you have excess money, you want to show and flaunt it, and those are luxury items that they are really important. And then you have things that fall into that category that are more common. And one of the things that are really always been high on trade back in antiquity, and that is things that make food taste good and preserve
Salt.
things, spices, salt, and stuff. Like salt is, I think, something that is often traded because that's something that can be really worth a lot if you have it, and you almost always need it. And a lot of areas, if you don't live close to a place that have a salt mine or close to ocean and warm temperatures, you're going to have a shortage of salt. And that means that unless you live really far north, that is basically frozen all year round, you need salt in order to preserve food. So salt was a necessity. But then you had a lot of spices that were not a necessity, but they made food yummy, like pepper and stuff like that people just loved. And so they go into luxury item, but they are a luxury for common people, and they could earn you a lot of money, so to speak, back in the day of simply just making food taste yummy. That's always been something that you trade a lot. And the other good thing is with stuff like that is that you can carry a lot of it very cheaply because it doesn't weigh that much. Problem with other things like metal and stuff is that it's really heavy and bulky to transport. So it's kind of, yeah.
I wanted to see. I almost forgot if I had set the giveaway up. I just was checking that, everyone. So
Yeah,
good?
please do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk some real Greyhawk life routes, and I guess the biggest one is divers to Greyhawk to Harby, right? Because that is like
that
the
is
jugular of the
one.
whole
Yeah.
of Greyhawk. Like,
but I
okay,
would
go ahead.
Yeah, no, sorry,
No,
please.
no, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say there are a couple of hubs that I think are so we can see where some of the biggest one. And they are what I think when I've studied the map and a lot, what I think is the biggest trade hub in the whole of the Flannies is probably Thornwood, because it has the most it's like a choke point. Yeah, exactly. Northwest Bissell. It's the choke point. It's basically the only accessible route between Western Flannies, the Bacloonish area, and Eastern Flannies. Almost all trade that goes through Eastern Flannies. Either you go up through the wolf and the tiger nomads up in the north, or you go through here, or you have to get over the Crystal Mist or the Barrier Peaks or the Yatils, or you teleport. So Thornwood is probably one of the points where a lot of stuff needs to go through. And sea routes are kind of frozen over and so far north that they are thousands of miles extra, so to speak. So this Thornwood is probably, and that's probably one of the reasons it's been fought over several times, and why Carl Sargent kind of had it taken and occupied and fought over extensively in the Greyhawk Wars, because it is one of these areas. Whoever controls Thornwood can probably lift taxes and get very, very wealthy just on siphoning off the trade. And if you control what can go through and what can't, you have a huge influence in stuff. And then you have all the stuff that comes with it. If you control a hub like that, you don't not only control directly the trade and the fees and stuff that comes from taxing and controlling the trade, meaning all these people that trade and all the animal, they need services, meaning they need inns and people that make the shoe horses, sell horses, give them food, provisions, whatever. They need all sorts of services, and it's probably a gigantic part of the economy that service all this trade going on, so to speak. So that's a big part of why you have these big cities.
It's a shame we never asked the Bissell lights. Thornwood changed it 3 times. Then during Living Greyhawk, back and forth.
Yeah, I think it was back and forth, and it's divided up into districts and stuff. It's a bit like Berlin after World War II in a sense. Yeah. So it was tight, and it's three powers that fight over it, so to speak, and control of it, and in the from the ashes and stuff. So it's both the Bakluni or Ket and Bissell and Veluna are all three are fighting over it, so to speak. So
I never even thought of that. I mean, you're
yeah,
absolutely right between
yeah.
the two
So
cultures and stuff.
mhm,
So
yeah.
this is gosh, I'm trying to put it into a real. I shouldn't do real world stuff, but a crossover land. Would that be during the early thousands, 1200s? Kiev,
Yeah, or Istanbul will be
Istanbul, yeah, Constantinople,
Istanbul will be
Istanbul.
a
Yeah,
good
okay,
one, and
all
we
right,
have Istanbul, Venice, Baghdad back in the day were
yeah,
towns and
okay,
cities that were very similar in the sense that they were links to east to west. I think Istanbul is a good
okay,
equivalent in a way, but this is more landlocked than
right.
ocean going in that sense, so to speak. So, but it's one of that in magnitude. I think in when it comes to trade, that's really high. And then we have a couple of others that I think are equally. And when it comes to the trade routes, we have the obvious. We have the Irafa road leading north from Thornwood, and
Right,
and
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 all the
that
keeps along. Look at this.
exactly keep, and they're there
Oh
to
my,
protect all the trade going on, so you can't lay in
sheesh.
ambush and stuff like that. So yeah, so you have one every 10 miles or so, and they're probably constant patrols and all that. And then not only that, then when you're gone, uh, you have towns and cities, you have Nehes and Lopolla and stuff like that. So after every day or two of travel, there is another town or city or metropolis that will service you and host you and protect you and stuff like that along the whole way up north and south too. And so they are, you have, if you go south along the Falls River, you have Falls Ridge, Mittrick, and so on and so forth. So you have the
Okay.
roads that they're going there. So they are kind of catered for to some degree.
This
But
is navigable.
mhm,
The Falls River is not
at least with downwards, it's
from
navigable
or
at least by
downward.
smaller boats, so to speak.
Okay.
So you can probably put a lot of goods on a barge or something and start pushing it downstream,
Yeah,
so to
because
speak.
this just twists and turns everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So but then you have a couple of other ones, Greyhawk and Divers we mentioned, but there's a couple I think we should almost do first, and Hardby. They are known, so let's
Okay.
dive
Sure.
into them later. But there's a couple of other ones I want to mention, and one is Nessermouth. That is the Venice of Greyhawk
And that's over here
down
somewhere,
there.
right? Yeah.
Yep. But the River Nesser. It's probably one of the most strategic when it comes to trade in the whole. The second most strategic in the
Looks like New
whole.
Orleans to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Venice in Europe and New
Yeah.
Orleans in North America. Exactly. It's very, yeah. New Orleans is probably an even better an analog, so to speak, because you have very good, meaning you have sea routes west, east, and south, and then you have the river coming from Nerdiv and north, and it's probably one of the best connected cities in the whole of the Flannies, and you can have trade. So that is very much, it's in a river
Okay.
delta, like Cairo in back in medieval times and stuff along the Mediterranean and stuff like that, or
All right.
Venice or New Orleans and on stuff. So yeah.
Navigable, Nesser, Duntide. How
Yes. Oh,
far?
yeah. They are both. I think the Nesser is navigable all the way into Nerdiv. I'm
Wow.
pretty
Okay,
sure.
from here.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. It's a gigantic river.
Right.
Imagine all the water that comes out that way. It's a
And the
huge river.
Duntide, it looks
Yeah,
like
and
it
the
stops
Duntide
up here.
probably at up to Relmord or something
Oh,
is
up to Relmord.
probably.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sure you can,
All the way
and
up to
with
Relmord. Okay.
small boats all the way up to Wumtham. I'm pretty sure, and with bigger boats all the way to Relmord.
Yeah. Okay. I
Yeah.
don't know if anything's like the Nile that wide, Curtis. I don't think, right? Or
Or Nessa River is probably as big
as
as the
Nile. Yeah.
Nile.
Oh
Oh
wow.
yeah,
Okay.
look
Okay.
at, if we look at the size of Nerdiv, and we have the
Okay.
Velverdiva, the Veng, and the Artonsamai all
Okay.
flowing
Cool.
into it. It's a big one, and then we come into sea versus land trade, and that's a couple of other ones, so to speak. But so that's one big hub, so to speak, and then we have another one that I think it's kind of also natural in this sense, and that's Iron Gate is another one that can bring stuff to onshore from land to water, so to speak, and also have good connections. So there is also a good reason, and it's also probably it's a very defensible position too.
Yes,
And
extremely.
I have a kind of an idea. I'm not sure if anyone have thought about this, but I don't think I come up with that. I think I read it somewhere. And that is that North Anchor on the northern side and Iron Gate. What if you had a tunnel through the mountain that was just a sea tunnel through? That will be a cool canal, an underground canal. What if the dwarfs dug it out, so to speak, or used magic and just or something? That will be kind of a cool kind of thing to have underground, so to
Would
speak.
the doors do a water navigable or passages?
Yeah,
Like
meaning
the-
that just because you have it's the ocean on both sides, so elevation is not a problem. If you just have an opening through, you can just take a ship and paddle through or pull yourself through or something
How
like
many
that.
miles is this? 55? Or is that?
Yeah, probably about 50 miles. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's quite an undertaking, but I was thinking more like it's an idea. So for your
Right.
campaign that you can have it and it will be kind of cool. That will make perfect reason why Iron Gate is there, so to speak. And it might be a secretive thing. They just very good at shuffling goods, but some others will figure it out. But it's a possibility you can, if you want to do something fantastical, it will be kind of cool to have it when we talk about trade routes that is possible. And then we have another one that I think is really obvious and old, and one of the reasons we have the Great Kingdom that a lot of people haven't thought about, and that is the trade route from Pontilver in and up the Flumney to Rossies. That I think was back in the heyday of the Great Kingdom was probably a trade route that was because Rossies is very located in the middle of the Great Kingdom. Yes, exactly. And that was the port city that has access to the sea, and that was the port, the Hardby of Great Kingdom, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then you have Rossies is the Greyhawk equivalent, so to speak. Yeah, the one that is in the middle of the empire, the capital, that is where you can, as far north as you can navigate up the Flamney. And then you can use small ships and boats and stuff that comes from all directions of the central part of the empire.
This has a partial Norway feel to it right here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I made some there to make it look more interesting and stuff. So yeah.
Right. And these are, I mean, these are more like navigable.
A little bit of fuel.
Yeah, fjord bay mix. Okay.
Oh, exactly. And it's miles wide, so no problem. You can sail in and out there. So yeah, and it's also a very protected port, meaning it's doesn't storm, hurricanes, whatever will have a hard time reaching in there. So it's a safe haven for boats and ships and stuff. So it could be kind of and it's the way you can offload things and unload it onto smaller boats and stuff, and then ship it up and down the river.
Long way. Wow.
But the way in itself is an asset, because a large part of the Great Kingdom population live along it, and you have a bunch of cities that are big along it. You have Carnifand, Torrik, Perdue, and so on. So there are several, and Nolbish, and then to the west you have Karlstrand and Reldevin, all tying up because you have two big rivers that comes down to that point, so to speak. So it's one of these that areas that I think a lot of trade when it comes to river trade. And if you mention the difference between land and sea trade, I started with river trade because I think that is probably the most important, because in a world where you have no trains, no trucks, and modern paved roads and combustible internal combustion engines and all that, where you basically have to pull it with using horse or donkeys and try, then ship trade is very, very attractive because it's very efficient. You can take large loads, very safe and easy, and you can move hundreds of tons of goods up and down big rivers much more effectively. That will take thousands of wagon loads, and it will be much more up to, meaning highway robbers and all sorts of trouble, weather, and all sorts of things could affect you much more when you travel on land with roads going muddy and snowing over and all sorts of things. So river traffic, meaning go on water, is usually both safer and much more efficient in old times, rather than go on land. So I think a lot of the majority of the big trade is done on rivers and lakes and ocean rather than on land, so to speak. So land trade, I think, is secondary.
So Mac asks about if paved towpaths next to rivers allow horses to pull barges. My guess is that a lot of places that's not able to be done. It would have to be done in a lot of man-made areas like canals and
Yeah,
stuff
but there are
because
some typical one, and I would say the perfect example of a place where that probably is true is up and down the Salintan.
yeah, exactly.
From the mouth of Salintan up to Greyhawk, I think were perfect. It's not longer than it's feasible, and it's very flat country, so there's no streams and falls or anything like that. So I think up and down the Salintan from Greyhawk down to the coast, I would, in my campaign, I definitely want to have it. I even put one road on each side of the river because of that. So there is basically a road on each side that is built primarily for that purpose.
Yeah,
Or
paved. I don't know
yeah,
about paved. I know dirt maybe, but paved. I don't know if there's a lot of paving going on
I think they will pave a road like that simply because that will help the
for the.
horses pull things, and it will make them much more weather resistant.
Writ of passage. Yes.
Yes, they did, and they were called the Diravane. They were even magically paved because they could withstand. They were called the Diravane roads, and they were
They're
several
not on
of
the
them.
map, are they at all?
Oh yes, they are named. Several of them are named. So I was going to come to that, but
Oh, okay.
let's do that. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. So the Diravane roads, there are several, and there's been a debate. I don't think there's a canon list of them anywhere. But they're described as the network that connected the roads of the Great Kingdom, just like you had every road leads to Rome kind of thing. So if we start in the central parts of the kingdom, you have the one of the most common ones is the Wind March, and the old Wind March led from Rosses west to Jalpa, and then from Jalpa it went south to Karlstrand and Reldeven, and then
South.
that was the Wind March.
Okay.
And there was a bunch of keeps and stuff like that. That was, and then
This
they
one's just the
after
coach. Oh, that's just Coach Keeps. Okay.
exactly, and the Wind March, and then after the war, that was the new Wind March, and that was through Carnifan down to Toric and stuff. That's mentioned in, and all this comes from Ivid the Undying.
Oh,
And
okay.
that was part of the Diravane road, and so that was part of it. Then you had one other that is mentioned too, that is very infamous or mentioned as a Diravane. That's the old, hang on a second here, it's the old North Erde Road, and that was actually the northern border of the Great Kingdom, and it's go to northern part of Shieldlands, but that was not so much a trade route. I think it was a defensive route.
Northern
Shieldlands. Yep.
Question
Near the White Plume Mountain and stuff, you have the old North Erde Road.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, and it's mentioned in the Marklands and even the
Yep.
Undying, I think.
But
And
that's the furthest extent, isn't it? Going
no,
out to,
going
of the
up
Shieldlands,
north.
it runs all the way up, right? It runs
Yeah,
up
and
here
it
to
runs all the way to
Stonewall
Molag.
Road.
Yeah, but it's called the Stonewall Road
Yeah, okay.
afterwards,
Yeah.
and so on. But so I think back in the day, it probably ran all the way to Delacquen, and then it started at Radagast City through Trelland, and then it ran all the way up the northern border, so to speak. And I think it was built not primarily as a trade route. It was probably a way of moving patrols to patrol the northern border of the Great Kingdom.
Yeah.
A way of controlling it, so to speak, as both as a border sign and a way of keeping easy patrolling back and forth. And those were supposed to be magical, so they protected you from the elements. They stayed
it's not a mouse, it's a trackball, so I only move my thumb here, see?
Yep. Cool. Yep. So that is, so Diravane is a thing in that they were used, and then there are several other ones. There is the Vigilant Highway that goes north of the Nerdiv through the southern Shieldlands.
Yeah, you can see that right here.
Yeah, and that went from.
I've used that one.
Yeah. And that I think went from Critwall to Radagast City, and that is also I think something that the Great Kingdom built, and that is probably way more trade, so to speak, and a way to connect east to west.
That's cool.
Yeah, so we have, and then we have other named roads that are big for trading. Let's see here. We have down in Keelland, we have the Steel Road, for instance, that goes from Neoldra northwest through the central and the Kingsway Road and stuff. Those are
Sylvan Way. Here's the...
Yeah, exactly. Those are trade routes, but they were not the Dira Wayne stuff, but they were also named roads that were probably named because of for trade reasons and
wow, there's a lot in the
traditions and
Duchy
stuff.
of Ulick. Look at this: Sheldamar Pike,
Yep.
Duke's Road, Riverwood
Yep.
Road.
And these road names, I have not come up with them. I maybe I've named one or two of these, but almost all of them are named in other sources. So it's not me. So yeah,
Wow.
I use 95, very slow traffic. Yeah, that's awesome. Yep.
Silver Path. Yeah. Okay. Very cool.
So there are some we have in lore. We have the Dira Vein, and they're described. If you look at and even the Undying, I think where I have the most, and other people have speculated exactly on the. I think there are some Cannon Fire posts and some other blog posts here and there that people have speculated exactly what kind of benefits you get from doing it. It's more like they're described and not statted out, so to speak. So it's a little bit up to you as a DM what you want to, but you might simply be able to travel faster. You might they protect you maybe from the elements a little bit and stuff like that, and they don't require maintenance the same way as regular roads do and stuff. So yeah. That's zombie cool. Drivers, yeah, you don't know. No. Yeah. But so now I'm sorry, I'm just babbling here. So
no,
please
this is good. That
me.
was good. We went off on a road tangent, which is great.
Yep.
So I saw Dale said, let's go back to the Great Kingdom. That is it a movement plus 40% increase in movement? I saw. Sure.
Oh wow, yeah.
On roads, the Durham roads are in excellent repair and have a multiplier of 0.4 for movement cost.
Okay, there you go.
This does not change with the weather either, according to. Now, is that out of the Undying? Which is pretty cool if it is, or is that out of Living Greyhawk?
I've seen stuff like that, but I forgot where I saw them originally. Yeah. So yeah.
So and road tolls. I think it's not bumpy. It's like a Roman road. It's in really good state, and you know, so that would be my guess on it.
Yeah. So and they probably, meaning in Great Kingdom, they probably built it both for trade, to move troops around and so on. So to maintain communication, so they can send, meaning the rulers could send both troops, information, and resources back and forth as needed. So roads are major infrastructure investment, really needed if you want to run an empire, so to speak. You want to move your resources and trade around. And let's dive in a little bit and look at, because the Great Kingdom has shaped the world so much, and especially if we look at the trade stuff, meaning we have Rossi's in the center, we have some of the old centers like Rel Devon, Karlstrand, Pontilver, Rel Astra. Those are old trade centers and stuff and Rel Mord as well. Those are kind of trade places where probably originally came to be as marketplaces and defensive postings and stuff, and then grew into the big metropolises and capitals of the Great Kingdom. But there are others on the frontier that I think came to be through trade. And now I'm half speculative. Some of them we know, like Greyhawk City and Divers, were established as bases, outposts, and then became hubs of the Great Kingdom that we know of. But there are others, if we look really far to the borders of the Great Kingdom, there are some speculative we can be, meaning there are, according to at least some of the sources that I've read, I'm not sure, people, please correct me if I'm going too far on a tangent, but we had, I think that the edge of the empire reached on the northern shores of the Wye Still. so to speak, meaning they reached as far as up the Veng and then just across, and they reached up in Perrenland and stuff. So maybe both Doraka and Schwarzenbrunn was originally trade outposts where the Great Kingdom traded with the barbarians and the others living far north, so to speak, where they got ivory, they maybe got reindeer meat, whatever, amber, all sorts of stuff, things that were hard to get in warmer latitudes that you can get far north, so to speak, and skins and stuff like that from various beaver skins. Maybe we can think polar bear skin and things like walrus tusks, whale oil, and various things like that could be hard to find. Various berries and stuff, herbs and stuff that were only available far north, so to speak. So yeah, wyvern skins. Yeah, so you can invent, and so I wouldn't be surprised if those Schwarzenbrunn and Doraka might have been grown big because they were these outposts where the Great Kingdom and the Erdi outpost where their merchant reached the fringes of their realm, so to speak, and then they took over and be ran by locals afterwards. And Thornwood probably grew up as the connection between East and West.
Interesting. So
and then we have
go ahead. No, Anna, you're on a roll. I'm letting you roll with this.
Yeah. And then we have another one that I think is one of these border towns between Great Kingdom and the outside world. And that's another one of Greyhawk fame that we wish we had more about. And I'm talking about Stoink. I think Stoink is probably a trade hub for two reasons. One is it's along the Artonsamai River, one of the major rivers. And I also think it's because it's a gateway between what used to be the Great Kingdom and the ungoverned bandit lands and uncivilized, from a Great Kingdom perspective, uncivilized land up north. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if Stoink grew big and powerful and wealthy between being a trade intermediary like Hong Kong or stuff like that in the real world. You were kind of Hong Kong was the gateway between the Western world and China for a long time, and Stoink might have been the gateway between the Erdi dominated world of Great Kingdom and those more uncivilized, ungoverned, or at least not under Erdi rule and influence countries up north, so to speak. And there were smart, savvy businessmen and others and warlords and stuff who profited on facilitating that trade. I can see that as the origins of Stoink. My surprise is that there should be a big town on the other side of the river, but that might be ruined now after wars and stuff like that. So and the other one you have, Radegast City, is the city where the trade that goes along the Artonsamai ends up being shipped out to Nerdiv, to the west and south, and so on. So that is a big trade facilitator there too. And then you have others up the city there, meaning you have both Red Span and Rookroost along the Artonsamai that kind of facilitate trade and then ship things down and then take. I can often see it like they collect various raw materials and stuff from the countryside and send it to that big city, ship it down, and then they get manufactured goods, cool weapons, armor, and things like that are hard to manufacture, requires a lot of skill and stuff, that being imported instead, so to speak, and things like salt and stuff being imported.
Looks like that there's a ruined stockade on the other side of Stoink.
Exactly. That's what I have. In my campaign, I'm thinking about making that into a ruined town or something that is much bigger. So meaning that the Great Kingdom side had one outpost, and then you had the other one, and there was like a bridge or something in between, and you could have like a foreign quarter on either side where trade could flow back and forth. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep. So you can have stuff like that. So yeah.
That's funny.
Yep.
Huh. Yeah.
So yeah.
Go ahead.
No. Please, I've been babbling so long now that I need to shut up for a bit here.
I was going to say that, the near deep appears to be the major, like the grand hub of
Mm-hmm.
everything,
Yep.
and that you have. You have Radagast City, you have Willip for here
Mm-hmm.
for
Yep.
I don't know about Axport and Alhaster.
No,
I'm
but
not
you
sure about
have another
those.
one that is
Yeah, what about Huntford?
overlooked in the north, and that's Critwall.
Critwall.
Because Critwall, meaning the
It's
river, the
navigable.
Veng, I have the Veng is so wide that you can sail all the way up to Critwall with what you can sail. It's
Okay.
basically, it's so wide up. I made it that on purpose. So Critwall, so meaning you have in the north you have Critwall and then Axport as a secondary, but Critwall in the east you have Radagast City, in the northeast you have Lukish in the southeast, and then you have Greyhawk in the central south, so to speak, and
And
Divers
divers
in
in
the western
Southwest.
southwest, and then Willip in the west, so to
Yeah.
speak. So it's covered. And then you have Admonfort in the middle that is kind of a stopover. If you want to sail from the one to the other, you can have a stopover in Admonfort if you want. So yeah, so near Div is kind of a
Admonford
definitely a
would be a
hub.
good one for Alyssa to do. I
Yeah.
always just
Mm-hmm.
wondered what the layout would be.
Yeah,
And
I think we have some sketches and if I remember correctly, but not much. Yeah.
no, Jumper's not there, man. And maybe in yours, I thought Jumper's in the wailing with whatever babbling.
Yeah. They had an invasion in Living Greyhawk, and during the war it was described as Ayus had to go, and there was some during Living Greyhawk there were a lot of adventures, and there was some sort of spell reservoir and stuff in Admonfort, and then the Shieldlanders took it back and stuff. So, but to me it seems a little bit far fetched, so I haven't gone with that. But that's definitely a choice if you want to. You can. I don't have Ayus being effective enough that he reached out to capture that island or Admonfort. I don't think he's that much on yeah, Wayne was the one. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Depending on, so yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
So let's go south here
Yeah.
because we haven't even talked like a lot of shipping. So this is where I always thought that um, it was very nebulous, like how shipping trade happens, who does
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah.
Is it is I like the Dutch? The Dutch were a whole like a cooperative, right? They were all together,
Mm-hmm.
but I
They
don't.
were the first. They were the first
Hey,
real
Celtic.
company in a modern sense. Was
Right.
the Dutch East India Company? They meaning they took investors who had shares. They built ship not by captain, but they had meaning they had thousands of people that put in money, and they organized it as a company. So each person had a stake, and then the company built ships, hired people as employees, manned the ships, and then ran them back and forth. And then if you had a share in the company, you got a share of the profit
Hey, Mike.
from each. And that was a novelty. Companies like that hadn't really existed before much. So it was the first company traded with stocks and owners like we have in today. So that was almost a novelty. And that's another thing. Do we have organized trade like that, or are they individual captains who rent out their ships, or to that facilitates trade, or do rulers like kings and mayors of big cities and stuff like that, do they own fleets of ships that do the trade? That's very much we don't know. It's up to each DM how you want to organize it, and of course you can organize it different in different areas.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It was like,
Mm-hmm.
is it individual ships, companies? There's not a lot of discussion
Yeah.
on that. And I
I
look like through
Mhm.
Greyhawk, it and you see pictures of a lot of shipping there, but it
Yeah.
doesn't. I don't think there's a lot of detail at all. Am I missing
Yeah.
that? Or someone
Mhm.
Keeland has something? Okay.
Yeah. I would go with alignment a little bit. If you have lawful places that have effective rule and governance, meaning if you have kings and nobles and others who have a firm rule of things and they can take up large amount of taxes and stuff, I could see that they want to organize the trade, and they want to own and run it because it's very profitable to
Standard
do.
traders.
So I can see that countries like Keoland and Ernst, and Nyrond and even Greyhawk and stuff, they might have a merchant guild and directly under the king. He might simply have either a guild that he organizes it, or they might simply have some other organization where they run things. Even provinces might have a fleet of ships that then are run by captains that they hire, and crews they hire, and then they facilitate trade. But then you have ungoverned states that are very chaotic or whatever, and there I don't see that they run it organized. Then they simply just pay someone to do the job, or let's say Pomarsh, for instance, as a very chaotic state with that is both evil and so on. I'm sure they do trade, but it's not on a very organized base. It's like if you are a captain and you're really risky and brave and so on and want to risk it, then you can show up with and stuff. And if you have a contact and you bribe the right people and so on and so forth, and they want you to come back more times with stuff, then you might do deals more on a case-by-case basis, and you want to risk it, and then you show up in High Port, for instance, and they might be representatives in High Port that captains and even other nations can use, and if you just bribe them and give them enough money, then you can show up and you can do trade and stuff. And if you are certain captains that you may, but it might be more from a case-by-case basis.
Yeah. My point was, I know, like, for example, we have Teamsters, like, in published source, we have Abel Carter Coaching Company. I have Pete and John's Teamster Service, but I don't know of anyone who's made a ship-based trading company at all. And I think that's a big hole. And I'm not sure if Troy's doing anything with that, but I think it's a huge area for development, because Mike's done a lot of stuff on the war aspect of the Sea Princes. But I don't know about the trading aspect of any of the. I think it's a spot. No Shipyards runs for any.
Yeah. And I can see there is a lot of overlap between warlike maritime activities and trade, because a lot of ships were probably used for both. And go back to the East India Company analog again. Those ships were basically equipped like man of wars in order to defend themselves. So I can clearly see that in a fantasy world, especially if you want to go to less savvy places like High Port and stuff and do trade, you probably have to have a lot of men at arms and people with you, so you can defend your and while there's negotiations and stuff, no one can just board your ship and steal the cargo. So that means that there's high risk, but that also means that the high rewards, because that's usually what trade means. If you're willing to go where there's high risk, that means that there's also a chance for do high profit. If you go to the safe places, that means that everybody else is going that way too. So that means that safety means low profit, but more a safe, secure, easy to get profit, but small profit. But you can take high risk, that means high risk of things going haywire, but there's also a chance of really big profit if you can pull it off, so to speak. And that's another key aspect of trade. Risk means reward, so to speak, or the chance for reward, and they usually go hand in hand in that sense, so to speak.
Cool. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
So I know there's a lot of scholar brotherhood conjecture out there. I try and stay away from it so that my head doesn't explode. But
we have a good question in chat. Yeah, we have a question from Justinius. Any good trade routes from Ratic to the Barbarians north? Yeah, and now we're coming. It's a good question for several purposes, because I think there are, and if look at my map, I just pointed them out as you just sail across the Grendep Bay, but there you have another thing. And this is now climate comes into it. A lot of trade, especially up north, is probably very seasonal. You only go there certain months of the year, because in winter, when storms hits and cold and frost like that, I don't think anyone goes out and risk it, so to speak. So trade might be very seasonal, both because the goods you're trying to sell or buy might only exist certain parts of the year, like harvest time or something. Other goods are available all year round, but some goods are probably very seasonal after hunting season, fishing season, harvest, etc. And also when you go up to areas like Ratik and stuff, now we're up in almost Alaskan climate or Scandinavian climate, meaning winter trade, no. You maybe it starts in spring and then it goes through summer and early fall it ends. And then in winter people they do local stuff, they manufacture goods to sell, they repair, build ships and stuff like that. And then spring starts, you go trading or raiding or maybe both. So you'd start raiding, and if you can't raid, then you trade, like Viking style or something. But I'm sure that if the weather is good, you can just cut across, so to speak, because I'm pretty sure that the best traders in Ratik probably have ships that are ocean going, and if the weather is good, it's only a couple of days across the Grand Dep Bay. And if the weather is good, so it's probably very seasonal, weather dependent, so
Do
to
they
speak.
trade with the barbarians though?
That's the thing.
I don't know.
Exactly. That's the thing. Now we come to the one of the first things I say: trust. Meaning, is there enough trust between the Ratiks and the barbarians up north to actually facilitate trade? Yeah, that might be that are a few daring captains that have secret contacts or something like that do it, but it might not be a regular trade. So you basically have to risk it, or you have to have secret contacts, or you meet at a neutral place. That's the other thing. That might be neutral places. And looking at the map, this is a scenario you might run with. What if Dex Point, that is independent, might be one of these places?
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, Dex Point's business idea might be to be a neutral harbor that is open and trusted enough both by the barbarians and the Ratikans and the people from the North Kingdom or the North Province. So the reason they accept Dex Point is that Dex Point might be neutral ground where you can actually do trade, because it's not on any, no one needs to go to their hated and distrusted enemy. They can go to a neutral arbitrary or someone that is in between, so to speak. So that might be one of the reasons for Dex Point to actually be there.
When did that appear on the map? Because
I think it's a living Greyhawk thing, or maybe it's a the Undying. I think it was not there originally. It came later on. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is it how big's the city?
It's a small city.
2,000?
So it's like, no, it's probably more like 10,000
really?
or 8 or 10,000 or something like that. Yeah.
It's Altamira sized. Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
So for me, that's a perfect valid point reason for the city to exist and flourish. It's a neutral go between haven, so to speak, like Singapore or Dubai in today's world, that you can come, and even in these times, fraught times between when you don't trust each other, and you can actually go to Dubai and you can meet both Russians and Americans, Europeans and Chinese and others can do business. Even Iranians and Westerners can do business and stuff. And Dex Point might be in a fantasy version of that, where you can actually meet, and there is someone that both sides trust enough to lay down the arms and actually hand over gold and do stuff, so to speak, in between. So that's a possibility. Or you can have it as a piracy haven where the pirates hang out and then go out and raid around too. That's another possibility. So yeah.
I did not even see that it's like it's separate from Beaumarch, everything. Wow.
So there you have that's a possibility, and to me, I like the trade hub idea, so to speak. It's kind of cool. You have another one that fills a possibility filling exactly the same niche if you go south along the Solnor coast, and that is Dalstrand.
Yeah.
Down south can fill the same between the Scarlet Brotherhood and the Great Kingdom and Sundi and others. That could also be a neutral, in between, so to speak, trusted third party in that sense. So it could be a trusted port where both sides could come to. And I've actually put up the some of the trade routes that way. So that's another possibility that then, and these neutral harbors, so to speak,
Seem
tend
like
to be full of spies and agents and skullduggery and all sorts of stuff that could be really cool for adventures. What if you're going to go to enemy country? It might be perfect to smuggle your way in there and then get smuggled onto another boat, bribe your way in, murder someone to get in and impersonate them, and all sorts of stuff from a campaign standpoint. These are interesting. They're very cool possibilities, so to speak, if you want to make the story a little bit more realistic, so to speak, in quote unquote. You can use these places.
yeah, I
Yeah,
didn't realize how many free cities or free open
yeah,
area terrains
yeah,
there are
mm-hmm,
now.
yeah.
You know, I knew about Dulce. I didn't know about the other one.
Yeah,
Wow.
but
Okay.
I think, and that's I think one of the main reasons for free city states to exist is to
Trade.
be that facilitator between different empires, interests, and so on. That's a business idea of facilitating trade between parties that don't trust each other directly, and then you can be in between, so to speak. Usually small, so small enough that neither side sees them as a threat. Meaning in the Cold War, we had Sweden and Finland and Austria are examples in Europe that were neutral, that were trade between East and
Switzerland.
West and stuff. Yeah, not so much Switzerland because they are
No.
landlocked in the Western bloc.
Oh.
But Austria, Finland, and Sweden had direct access to both East and West, and Dahlstrand and Dex Point filled those niches, so to speak. And then we have two others that I think are interesting from a little bit other when we talk about sea-based trade, and that is blue and scant. Those are two sister cities, so to speak, in a way. And now we're talking from Onval and the Pomarche.
Yeah.
Blue and scant, and those are interesting because they are both a way to connect east to west. So you can facilitate trade from the Onval Peninsula to the Pomarche, but they are also where you can base piracy and stuff if you want to control the Gernat Strait and you want to mess with a lot of the trade traffic that goes north and south, meaning they need to pass in here. And if you have a base on either side, you can go back and forth, which is why I think the Scarlet Brotherhood occupied both of them during the war, was to be able to mess with as much sea trade they could get away with, so to speak. It's good to have, it's much more efficient to have a base on either side and just sail in between than it is to have to go back and forth again. Now you can just wait, and as winds turn, you have two options to go to. And you can also stage, one can support the other, so to speak, and that is, it's kind of an interesting way. So both for trade purposes, but also to disturb trade and to use it for war as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's cool. They're not that old either, man. They go back to 2020. Those the one on it's on Kiewish efforts to gain intelligence on the vast unexplored frontier around Sortep the Asia Sea. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's cool.
Yeah.
So
And we think that blue was probably built by the Kiewish during their imperial phase when they controlled the Pomarche and had it. They probably built it because they wanted to dominate the area, and it's a port in a very strategic location. So is Scant on the other side. So they might have been, they're a bit like Nesselmouth in that way. They are strategic locations, not because they are big rivers, but because of their outlook on the ocean, so to speak. So they are very interesting that way.
very, very cool.
Another one we should mention that we haven't mentioned when it comes
Please.
to big, and that's Gradsul in southern Kioland. There you have another one like Cairo or something like that, meaning it's the big city, that a big city at the mouth of a river. So you can go up basically up and down the Sheldamar Valley. There you have two rivers, the Yavan and the Sheldamar. And Gradsul is perfectly placed at the end of Sheldamar in order to facilitate trade in and out. So that is, it's very logical. That almost needs to be a big city at that mouth of the river, so you can facilitate. And then the other big city that connects through the river is Neoldra, the capital of Keelland. So that makes perfect sense to have the capital in the center of the empire with the river leading down to the big
Plus,
port
Germa
city.
is on here on the cool riverside here.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other thing. You have many big cities up and down that various rivers. So you have Tringli, Jurnere, Neoldra, you have Axgard, even up to close to Shibboleth and stuff. So there's many up. And then the other big river is Yavan, where you have a city like Longspear, Krillor, and Flen is close to, but not really, and so on. So there's a couple of big cities up the Flen too. Yeah.
All right, let's get it out of the way here. So on my side of the map,
Yeah,
there was nothing, and there's a river, and there was an entire river with nothing there. So we have our Ordervulic headquarters, Wales Castle, which is built as I use the pictures of Mont Saint Michel. That's how it's built there, right? And that's there because I'm assuming the Jewel's navigable.
Yeah, but what could be the reason that is not a major trade river?
The humanoids.
Yes, exactly. You have safety. That's the other meaning you need trust when you actually do the exchange of goods and currency, but you also in trade when you transport it, you need both efficiency, you need some reasonable way of transporting it, but you also need to make sure it's safe to transport the stuff, and to have a neighbor of the sus forest and the Pomarche. It's not a good neighborhood to go up and down the river. So that makes perfect sense that the Ural River is not a big trade fairway or trade route because it's unsafe.
It's all more military fortifications running all the way up.
Yep.
But then to connect, now I can't find the map. Of course, I wanted it, but I can't find it. Okay. Speaking of trade. There's the low road system for the doors runs through the entire length of the Lower Mill Mountains, right? I can't find it. It must be on my other machine. Remember, I'm on my new computer.
Yeah, because we all want that map.
Yes, it's down there. It's down on my machine.
Yeah, you have to find it. So
I will find it. Runs the entire length. You know, it's from Rich, and it runs down all the way through and connects multiple locations, including Hearthguard Tower. Here it runs through, and we do a lot of adventures trying to find it because it's not currently in use. It's like since the Hateful Wars, it's been gone. It's not been out of use, but now they're attempting to Thanks, CalStaff. They're attempting. You know, with adventuring and all, attempting to reopen it. It's kind of like a Mines of Moria, I guess, you know, thing.
Yeah.
But connect that to, and that's the main reason why when we were in 1987, we put Altamira here because we're like, how does this Celine and running up? There needs to be a city there. There needs to be something there, a trade hub, and that's how that's how we placed it there.
Yeah.
So,
and that's another interesting question when you talk, meaning having routes underground could be a very safe option because it's a lot harder to go in and ambush someone and come down in a tunnel complex than it is to hide out in a forest or something. So I get that tunnel complexes and dungeons are probably easier to defend. So they are secure from a lot of things, meaning when you're out on the countryside in open road, there's a lot of things that can attack you, from humanoids to dragons to God knows what. But if you're down in a tunnel underground, and the other thing is that you're also protected from the elements. It doesn't snow, rain, stuff like that, and the temperature. It does no wind usually and stuff. So there are many. It's usually very difficult to manufacture them or even to make them pliable because natural caves are not usually easy to navigate or put anything through. So there is a lot of work to produce tunnels and stuff. But if you have tunnel boring monsters and magic, exactly, then you can probably produce a lot of stuff, a lot of tunnels that we can't produce in the real world until this day, so to speak. So magic and various monsters can kind of replace technology in producing them, and then they might be a very viable trade route. And you can also go through mountains rather than have to climb over them, and that makes them also very, very effective in trade routes. You can make shortcuts through mountains. So think of Slerotin's tunnel was not built for trade, but someone might build. And we have an example. We have an example of this. Go up to Exag, up in Pearland or west of Pearland. We have the
So
Exag.
I will, 1 second, Rich.
Yeah,
The
please.
low
Yeah.
road runs the entire length of the Lortmal Mountains with different
Oh, wow.
branches
Yeah.
and stuff. It's probably 100 times longer than the Eurotunnel.
Oh yeah, that meaning come on, the
Yeah.
Eurotunnel is it's not even it's roughly east to west of the shortest bit of the Lort Mills there.
Yeah, it runs. It's huge. All right,
Yeah.
so Exag's all
Yeah.
over here.
So we have the
Yep.
lands of the Kund clan. I
Yeah.
think this is a living Greyhawk invention. They have a tunnel
Yeah,
with a
here it
Kund
is.
outpost on the western side of Yatil, and then they have an eastern portion, and they do trade between Exag and the Baklunish through the Yatils, under the Yatils, or through them, so to speak. So we have they are I'm not sure I don't think they mentioned the Underdark in the same, but
Yeah, I don't think this is any Underdark connection at all.
Exactly. It's an east and west trade route through the mountains.
Yeah, to connect once again Baklunish lands with Perrin land. And for is Exag a human city?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, but this is Dwarven.
Yep.
Okay.
And Exag, I think, is part of old. I think it's mentioned early on, if I remember correctly. I think it's part of.
Is it on Darlene's map?
I think so.
I think it is.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
But trade between the surface world and the Underdark, I think there definitely should be, because there's probably a lot of goods that the people in the Underdark want and they can't get a hold of, like yummy foods of all sorts and stuff like that surface dwellers have in abundance and they don't have. And on the other hand, they have a lot of minerals and precious metals and stuff like that are common down there, but rare for surface dwellers. So I think
my Bible.
Yeah, there's. So I think there's a lot of good grounds for trade between the surface world, but on the other hand, it's the issue of trust.
Right. So I go to my pink cover. So Vault of the Drought D3. If you want to know about the Underdark trade, you have. Let me make sure if I can find them all.
Yep. Exactly. Dark Elf. Yep.
Yeah, the merchant clans are in here and all listed throughout. Here we are. Right here. Yep. So
but trade meaning greed can take over hatred. When if there is enough profits to be made, so to speak. A lot of people can put their differences aside, meaning trade can often be way more profitable than war. And if that's the case, usually even the most warlike might put their axes and swords on the side and start handing over goods and getting money or getting other goods back, so to speak. So yeah.
So I always thought that was neat that they had the merchant clans.
I think it's cool. Yep.
Yeah. So
it's one of the things that I think makes a lot of sense that are cool added in the Living Greyhawk era. Yeah.
So some other notable things that I like. This has got to be High Folk and the Elven kingdoms in through the Parent Land here, right?
Exactly. The Velverdiv, hang on a second here. The valley has a name, and I should remember it. The Kirshane Valley.
Okay.
Yeah, Kirshane Pass.
Kirshane Pass.
Yeah. So that is, I think, also an obvious trade route, so to speak. And there you could, and there we have things going up and down river. There we have, because it's kind of obviously easier to go down a river than it is to go up a river. When rivers are really wide and on flat lands, you can usually sail up the river, and then you can sail or use oars or just drift downriver. But as soon as the rivers become too narrow or too fast flowing for sail, then you tend to either take really small boats so you can row up rivers, or you can and really tiny rivers you can punt. You can use a raft and you can actually push on the bottom. But now we're talking really small things like 1 or 2 persons using a tiny little boat, like almost canoe size or a little bit bigger, then you can punt your way or paddle or your way up. But that's usually only effective for small transport. So what happened in a lot of places in the world where the rivers, like Belvedere, I think is a good sense, especially when you have like a big forest. What I think, because timber is a resource in itself. So what you can imagine is that you put together a lot of timber that is valuable downriver, and you make big barges, and then you simply ship the barge down with goods on it, and then you sell both goods and the barge. And the barge itself becomes part of the thing. And then you take a small boat, and the crew goes up the river in small boats with the money, and then build a new raft and a barge with timber, and then ship down the timber with goods, so to speak. So there is a possibility. Or you simply buy a horse, and then you ride up, and then you build a new barge and you ship that down, so to speak. So I can see that the upper Belvedere is probably a high candidate for stuff like that, because it's probably not wide enough for sailing per se when you get really far up, but it's probably very feasible to go downriver.
So I read this on I don't know, or I saw it on a show with sea-based trade, particularly um, those of the Pacific Ocean. And the question was, how could they find all those islands? And they said that they would always go into the wind as far as they could, because they knew they could get back a lot quicker going with the wind on the way back. So that was the whole thing, that they could go out and out and out. So
but there are some cool tricks you can use, and in a fantasy world you always have magic too, but there are some tricks, meaning the Vikings, they used a couple of tricks. First, they had ravens with them, or crows. So if they were out in the ocean and they weren't sure, they released the ravens or the crows, and if the crows came back, they knew there were no islands in sight. If the crows or the ravens didn't come back, they knew they had landed somewhere else, and that knew that they had to look for islands. And then, if you're good at a good mariner, so to speak, weather is an underestimated. You can often see land masses further away by seeing convection, meaning that the weather, these puffy cumulus clouds, they often appear over land, but not water, because the water has a uniform, much more uniform temperature. But when you have a sunny day, land is warmed up and you get puffy cumulus clouds. Or you get, if there's hills further inland, you get these lenticularis and various clouds. They are clouds that normally appears over land, but not water. And those clouds can be seen miles, maybe 100 miles away, but you can't see the island or the coastline. So the weather is one of the key that you can see and detect land way over the horizon, so to speak. So that's
a great thing. So that was known in the ancient world, but was that known in the Greyhawk?
Oh yeah,
world?
I'm sure that the mariners of ancient world, like the ones that travel across the Pacific and others, they knew about these tricks.
Right, but I'm saying in Greyhawk, do they know that?
Oh, I'm sure you can have in your campaign. You can. Meaning, if you are a good sea person, you can see and read, and then you can also use magic and look at weather and stuff. But I'm sure you can. I would definitely have someone who knows to navigate and stuff, will know stuff like this, so to speak. And then you can also see things like floating in the water. You can see vegetation and stuff like that. And there are also different types of fish and other animals that you find in the water that only appear when there's near shores, so to speak. So you know that if you catch this type of fish, you can't be far off land, because they don't appear far out into deep water and the big ocean. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of ancient mariners knew about that trick too. So there's
shows up. Kraken always shows up, Moose. You could be
and then you have the opposite.
A tub taking a bath, and a Kraken's going to show up.
Yep. So you can have things like that, and shorebirds, meaning you have
Seagulls.
the wildlife. Yeah, the
Yeah.
type of meaning you have certain birds that live all across the ocean, but then you have a lot of birds that only live close to land, and you when you see them, you are pretty sure, okay, that's where land is. So there's various tricks like that that would work in a fantasy world too, to figure out if you're close to land and you can use to navigate with.
So I got a question.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if it's developed in Savage Tide or not. Does anyone know? Let me know. What's the trade? What's the trade or trade routes? Because Sasserine was fairly new. From
Mhm.
Sasserine, where did they go for trade? Did they go? Did they go to Sea Princes? Did they go to Keelan? Where because it is hot there,
Yeah.
so they
And
can't have everything that they. So I'm
yeah.
just curious.
Yeah, I would say that they will go to places. First, you have the Port Tolly and Moonmerg are two obvious ones that are close by, and Fort Blackwell
Okay.
are obvious ones that are first next stop, so to speak, from Sasserine. And Sasserine is another one of these kind of neutral ports. It's not firmly allied with one or the other.
Right.
So
Okay.
so ships both from Scarlet Brotherhood and from others can probably go there. It's powerful enough to defend itself, but it's not powerful enough to threaten any other power, which is usually where most other powers want to have a neutral city, so to speak, free city. Powerful enough to be a safe haven, but not powerful enough to be a threat and come after you. That is usually where most free cities want to be, meaning financially powerful, but not militarily superpowers.
Right.
That's
Okay.
usually what they want to have: a strong city guard, strong harbor protections, but not an enormous navy that are out threatening others. Because then, if Scarlet Brotherhood see you as a competitor of the domination of the ocean, they're not going to go there and trade. But on the other hand, if you're an unruly place where someone will steal your ship, they will invade you instead. But if you're somewhere in between, they will come and do trade and stuff with you. And so Sasserine has, in that way, I would say, and maybe all the way up to places like Gradsul or Grurax might very well
That's what I
be
thought. I thought
within. Yeah.
Grad Soul
Oh
myself.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
those are places, and Red Shore. But and when it comes to what you get from Sasserine, meaning you have a lot of cool things in the jungle, from various yummy foods and spices to rare types of timber
Dies
and
too.
probably, yeah, exactly, dyes and feathers and hides and
Hardwoods. Yep. You're right.
exactly,
Yeah.
and various poisons. Don't forget that there's probably a lot of critters and stuff that you can find in the jungle that gives you ingredients, magical ingredients and stuff like that, rare animals and all sorts of stuff. So yeah. And there's mountains close by in the hell furnace and stuff. That might be some cool minerals and stuff coming out of that one too.
All right. I'm gonna risk something as we keep on talking, and I go
Yeah,
for it.
and that will, yeah, fruits might, yeah, food stuff is difficult to preserve, and that's why I think things like you put things in, or what you call, you pickle things and you salt them, you magically freeze them, you dry them, you smoke them. There's a lot of things, and you can magically preserve them if they're valuable enough. That might be spells that can take care of it. You can make magical containers for really precious things to maintain them and stuff. So yeah.
All right. So I'm gonna share something Troy sent to me.
Yeah.
All right. Give me a sec here. It did not crash the stream. Yeah.
No, it's gone well so far.
Uh,
I'm sorry if I babble too much, but these
no, this
are
is
things.
great.
Yep.
You're
Hmm.
making my life easy tonight because
Okay, good.
you
Yeah.
know, I'm more of a let's discuss this book, this publication.
Yeah,
This is in
exactly.
that
But that's when you save me.
ethereal,
So
yeah.
yep. Hmm.
So,
Yeah. But
uh,
these type of topics are things that I think about a lot. So yep.
um, one second. Okay. Uh, here are. This is from Troy. I don't know if he's sneak peeking this, but he says these are
Okay.
from the Kana. Anyone know about the? So yeah, these are the ocean traders. They're intelligent
Oh.
kraken. So let
Uh-huh.
me hear. So uh, I guess it's pronounced Gna, are traders of the oceans. They can be found anywhere there are creatures with something to trade. Since the dawn of time, the Gna have traveled all over the oceans of the world. Most Gna families are content with well-established trade routes. So, yeah, they're I guess they are the traders of the depths of the oceans. The carrier warships of the Mithrae guilds. This came from. Let's see here. I think he referenced the publication. Of course, now PC3, the Sea People. So I'm not sure. Yeah. So that's interesting. So this is detailed as far as and looks like they're allied with elves, so it can't be evil. At least 6 Knopf families were exterminated by privateers. So neat stuff there, Troy. I'm assuming you're going to be. Is that what that's from? Well, or expanding on that. So is that from Hollow World? I'm not sure. Or Mystara. That's a Mystara thing.
Yeah.
But hey, it's cool. It's something. Maybe he's going to expand on that in Greyhawk, which is cool.
Yep.
Very cool. I appreciate you sharing that. That's from PC3 to Sea People. Is that all right? So is that Greyhawk or is that Troy? I don't know that reference book because you know me. I'm not, and I don't know it all. I know a lot.
I was thinking one other thing when we talk about sea trade and stuff going across the ocean is that there are things that are seasonal there too, meaning the winds can be very seasonal. So you have one half of the year, or in spring you might go in one direction, and then you might wait over summer, and then when fall comes, the winds turn, and then you go back the other way, so to speak. So it might very well be that certain times of year you go in certain directions. And stuff that's I think could be an aspect. I'm going to look into. I've started looking into climate and stuff for my Earth model. So one of my ideas that I'm toying with is to have run a Greyhawk weather service and make forecasts each week or something like that. And post them on my website.
That idea.
Yeah, and then you can just take them and use that campaign in my. So that's one of the things that I'm toying with.
We don't have any hurricanes.
Exactly. So I want to
we need some of that.
Yeah. So I want to use and to establish do like a weather forecast of weekly and then post that or something. That's something I'm toying with. So yeah. So I'm starting to play with it, and I will be kind of cool. I want to elaborate and have like a weather service that you can use those weather charts in your campaign and do it on like it depends on. I need to make a template, and that was one of the things that I wanted to do when I put GIS into it, because that it makes it a lot easier to do these things, because I can just put the data in and the map can generate itself. So that is something I'm playing with. Yeah.
That's awesome. It says Sharknado. Sahagwinado. That is cool. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, Trey Van Varigon, I'm working on it. I don't have it done yet, but next year I will have. Want to have the whole of my map done in a year or so, geo-referenced. So yeah,
like the Dragon Greyhawk weather tables. Yeah, but that would be great. Like to have just like have some certain weather effects that were going on, like day to day.
And as then you can just take and so I will and you will take into account seasonal effects. So it will basically be each week of the year, so to speak, and then move it forward and have a special weather and stuff. So yeah, so
you should Patreon thinking, that and make that a higher tier.
Yeah, or something like that.
Should.
Yeah,
you should.
Yep, that's a great idea. So yeah. So that's one of the things that I'm playing with, because I want to they have weather tables in the Go box, and there's a website that have put that into. Hang on a second.
Yeah, they're not detailed enough. They're good.
No,
they're good.
They're not that
detailed. They're good for a start.
Exactly, they're good for a start, but I wanted to have like a weather report of North America or something like that. You can actually put in with the temperature and humidity and wind and stuff like that for different parts of the world. That it would be kind of fun. So yeah.
Very, very cool.
So that's one of the things I'm toying with, because these are things that I love and are very interested in these aspects, so to speak. So it will be kind of fun.
And it
And
fits right into everything,
yeah,
everything you're doing. So
yeah. And when it comes to the extreme in trade, we can go up to Jotsplat, one of
yes, Carlos's favorite
yeah,
spot.
yep, up in Jotsplat. Imagine Jotsplat up here. Go a little bit east
There it is. Yeah, I'm
and
trying to.
northeast. Yeah,
There it is.
yep. So we can imagine trade in the extreme, so to speak. We can imagine here we have an Arctic coast. It's like northern Siberian coast or northern Alaskan coast or the tip of Norway or something like that, or Greenland or something in extreme. We're talking really cold polar climate. And what can they have for resources? Well, things like whale
Seals.
oil.
Yeah.
They can have ivory from walruses and stuff, bones, hides, various fish oil and stuff like that. So they're and the other monster parts and things like that they can have as resources. But you can imagine the window of coming there shipwise, because to go across the mountains and stuff, that's not feasible for trade, so to speak. So you have to come with a ship, and so you can imagine that each spring there is a caravan of ships, so to speak, a convoy of ship that sets out from the south to go north. And they might start in spring. They're there early summer. They load up stuff and they come with the year's supply that they sell to the yacht splatters, and then they buy all the stuff, they fill up the ships and stuff and repair them and so on during the summer, and then midsummer, late summer, or late spring, then they go back again. And in the spring they go the other way around. So there might only be like one going one way or the other, a bit like they when you exchange crew and goods at the Antarctic polar stations. In this, there might only be one or two runs in the summer, and that's it, so to speak. So
And
over winter, yeah,
sometimes it may not freeze.
exactly. So yeah, so they might be very very seasonal. So you can have an adventure where you basically send the party up there to spend a few months hunting and
Yeah.
doing trade and doing stuff, and then go back again in the fall. That might be the whole campaign.
They made a whole horror TV show about the two ships, the Terror and stuff, that got caught in the
Yeah.
1840s in the
Yep.
in northern Canada.
Yeah. And
Because they got frozen in.
yeah, exactly. First, you have to brave the weather going up there, and then you have to navigate to get there, right? And then you have to make sure that you don't get killed by the locals when you arrive, and then you have to fight the wildlife over summer, and then you have to acquire enough resources and wits and stuff so you can actually get the ships ready to sail back down again. Or you have to, or maybe you're the one that go up to just stay over winter. That might be the whole campaign, and then be relieved in spring again, so to speak. So there is a one that you can tie in trade with an adventure, so to speak. Someone might be lost there last year, and your adventure is to be part of a crew and go up and find what happened to these people or someone or the money or whatever it is, and you had to figure it out. And there's only one way up, and then 3 months later, there is one ship going back again for you or something. So yeah.
Yeah.
That's one way you can take trade as part of to the extreme, and you can build it into a campaign or something. And you have to do it undercover or something like that.
It's a great idea.
Yep.
So we do the back up with the barbarians. Do you think that the barbarians probably trade with each other? They probably have respect there, but I don't think they would trade outside the community. I don't know. I just don't know.
I'm sure they do trade to some degree outside the community, because think of it, inside the community, they have pretty much the same resources.
Yeah, not much.
So exactly.
Fishing,
exactly. Yeah. They sell fish to the neighbor that can go out fish for himself. Is probably not the best business in the world, so to speak. So what they trade with each other is probably women, because they don't want to it's much better to go and hump the neighbor's woman than your own relatives. And now I'm being facetious here, but we need to think real here, so to speak. So I'm sure they will have places where they meet and have jolly times and get together and meet people from the other tribe rather than from their own, so to speak. And one of the other things they might also trade are manufactured goods. so to speak, because they might have a better smith than the other one, and the other one might have a better leather maker than you have, and stuff like that. So I would see stuff like that, and the best bards might maneuver so on. But major trade is usually done between someone on the outside of the community that have resources you don't, and vice versa, so to speak.
I'm opening it up to some general questions here.
Oh, please. Yeah.
See what we get.
Yeah, trade or raid is probably a question when it comes to chaotic places like that. You bring some goods and you bring some axes, and then you see which way you will go. Yeah.
And we're assuming that a lot of so someone did ask the biggest trade, the most busiest trade route. I'm going to say it's off the near Div.
Yes,
yeah,
I would.
near Div is the busiest.
Definitely. I think along the Nesser, along the Velverdiva and stuff, along those rivers are probably some of the biggest. Selintan, Velverdiva, Nesser, and Sheldamar Valley or Sheldamar River are probably the biggest, because they are big. They have lots of people living along them, and they also have different climate zones and biomes and stuff from one end to the other.
Right.
Meaning there are very different resources in one end versus the other, so to speak. So that's why a lot of trade goes between people that have something to people that have something else, and so on. So you can take like Nessa River, for instance, or the Velverdiva. You can have things going north might be salt, manufactured goods from the south, a lot of like fabrics. You can think silk and yummy food stuff and things coming from the south. The north can have things like timber. You can have fur, and if you have from mountainous up in the Yatils and stuff, you have a lot of metals and stuff, and then manufactured going up, meaning there might be swordsmith, armor smiths and stuff in big cities and stuff that manufactured goods like that goes up, so to speak, and a lot of the raw materials coming down.
So if you notice, the near Div is shaped like what? The Lake Superior? Like Michigan,
yeah, I think it's Lake Superior. Yeah,
it looks just like it, right? And it's got the same weather. I mean, full ships disappear on the Great Lakes.
Oh yeah,
here
and
too.
It's big.
And it's even worse
exactly,
here.
And it's 200. Yeah, it's 200 miles long, so it's like it's out in the ocean out there. So it's big enough to. Meaning the biggest lake I've been to, saying is Lake Vänern in Sweden, that is 100 miles long, and it's so far out that if you're in the middle of it, you can't see land anywhere, and the waves can be 20 feet high, and so I've seen really choppy big waves on the lake. So near Div is like an ocean in that sense. Yeah, definitely.
So we have a question from Mac. Are there places in the Flanders where they use rivers to send logs downstream from logging camps? Well, I'm going to say yes, and I think, let me see if I can pull this up.
There's several that I think are really good candidates for that.
Yeah, and I think one of them Alyssa has done, right, in her map. I mean, it looks... All right, let me bring that up and show you what I'm talking about here, friend.
Yeah.
Let's see. So this is Wantham.
Yep. The Duntide. Yeah.
The Duntide.
Yep.
Let's take a look. Look at this.
Yep. I think it's one of the main reasons Wantham is there is to timber coming from the Gamboge that needs to be manufactured, shipped, and improved on and turned into logs and then shipped down to Relmord and down to central Nirdiv or Nyrond, where a lot of the people live that don't have that much forests to chop up things from. So so I think that's one of the obvious one. Another one is the Velverdiva, because the Velverdiva comes from the Vesvi, and there's a lot of forest up along the northern bit of it, and there's forest even down south, and they can ship it out on the Nirdiv to places like Willip, to Radagast City, to Greyhawk, to Lukish.
It is
exactly. It's a long river, but it's downriver, so it's easy to ship logs and stuff downriver. It's easy to cut it down and just and you have a lot of forest just along the river, so you don't need to travel far to the river. You can just chop it down and bundle it up and ship it downriver, and you have a profit, so to speak.
So, Terrifying, if you scroll up, CalStaff linked it just recently, a generator, which is good to start. There it is. Let me relink this. Enter that.
Oh, you're talking the weather generator?
Yeah,
no?
I think that's what he was asking.
Yeah, I have that link here otherwise too. Yeah.
Whoops. So, how far up the river on Wantham? I don't know. Maybe Anna can answer that for logging. How far up? Maybe no more than 50 miles. Is that right?
Well, Wamtham have the good thing is that Wamtham have the river coming from the Gamboge forest, and Wamtham could be the place where you bundle it up together and you can saw it into and take away the ugly bits and only keep the things that are really profitable. So you can kind of enhance the thing and make it from a raw material to
Okay.
goods that you can actually sell. So Wamtham is both a way where you collect it from various places and also where you make sure it becomes valuable goods to sell, so to speak.
Question. This is a good question, Dark Elf at Twilight. Is there
Yeah.
any trade route that's particularly dangerous or treacherous, but there's only one route available?
I would say yes, and there are some yeah. One obvious one is through Thornwood and the Bramblewood
Yeah.
Forest. I wouldn't have it but it is dangerous simply because it's contested, and there's since the war there is like Thornwood area is contested between Ket and Bissell that are enemies now. So I have it in my campaign that they basically closed down the trade. But we can say
I would say this if this is
yeah,
Scarlet Brotherhood
there you have
side,
another one. Yep.
I'd say this one.
Yep, you have another one that is dangerous.
Two
And
are not straight.
yeah, and we have another one if you want to come out from the Azure Sea south and you're not part of the Scarlet Brotherhood and approved of them, you have to go through the Olman Isles that are those seaways are controlled by the Scarlet Brotherhood too. So if you want to move away down south to Hepmona land, you have to brave it through the Scarlet Brotherhood because they are almost like they have a monopoly of trade with Hepmona land and the Amidio. So if you're not part of or bribe or accepted by the Scarlet Brotherhood, then that might be very dangerous to be out sailing there.
I do not believe so yet, Mac. On that, on what crops grow where. I don't believe that's the case. Where you have lines of demarcation where you don't grow corn or you don't grow.
I'm starting to have ideas of that depending on it, but I need to work a bit on the climate first because that's basically what tells you what crop is the most important one. The base crops depend on climate. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question.
So we can imagine that there are a wheat belt and a potato belt and a rice areas and stuff like that. So
notice we specifically stayed away from the slave trade stuff and all that. We don't need to get,
exactly. We kind of we stay away from that one today. So yeah, but but dangerous trade routes, and one that I think is kind of obvious, been very that used to be probably a big trade route that is now very unsafe and scary is along the Veng River between Lake. Go from Nirduv up along the Veng.
Yeah.
That is probably a big trade route back in the day because it's a wide river that is very flat. It doesn't have any big elevation. No. So it's probably a very good route for sailing and shipping things, both up and down. But thanks to the fact that it's good on one side and evil on the other side, is probably a kind of a unsafe route these days.
And also you know that because there's just forts all along the entire length, right?
Exactly. So it's a bit like it's like you have one power on one side and it's a river that is hostile divide, so to speak. So that means that it's scary so probably underused for that reason.
Troy says he's got the maps based on climate and what crops grow where for you in real world ones, which is awesome.
Yep. That is great.
Turfang asked, do you consider Whitaker climate zones? I don't know what that is. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, there's various different climate systems, so to speak. So yeah, Whitaker is one of them. So yeah, so there's several different climate systems that are used by researchers and stuff. So yeah, thank you.
Next to last stream of the year.
Yeah. So those are kind of obvious. The Veng is kind of an obvious dangerous one. And another one very similar to the Veng is the Artonsamai. That is probably unsafe because the either if you're pre-war, so it's the bandit kingdoms that are not the most organized and most civilized areas, and then after war, the northern side of the Artonsamai is controlled by Ayus, and the southern side by Ernst and Nyrond.
Yeah.
So there you have the same evil good, or before chaotic kind of organized good, and then more chaotic neutral evil on the other side. So it's kind of, yeah. So that's another reason why I think both the Veng and the Artonsama are probably underutilized as a trade route, which is probably in places like Stowing's favor, because they are bigger in land connections that way than rivers. So yeah. So yeah.
Okay. Well, it's a good point.
Exactly. I used Köppen. Yes, I used the Köppen climate classification. Yep. So that's another one.
So I want to note something here that I don't think you get out of Harby and you know all the issues all along the Woolly Bay. I don't think there's that much trade running up and down the roads on the Wild Coast. Hence why it's the Wild Coast.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah. So I think that's one. But in a lot of sense, that probably benefits Highport, because then the trade needs to go by sea. And the next stop after, if you go from Hardby, the next stop is probably Nessermouth or Sornhill. Those are the next ports, because Highport is too risky. It's a large chance that the orcs and the bandits or slave lords or whatever might take your ship. So if you go from Hardby, you either go just across to Safeton, or you go all the way down to Nessermouth or to Sornhill, or you go over to Primp or Old Dread or Methat. Those are the big stops. So it's quite a distance to go from Hardby. So I think Nessermouth is kind of an obvious next stop, so to speak, when you go from Hardby. So Nessermouth probably has a lot of transitory trade. A lot of people bring their goods from various places to Nessermouth and have it not sold directly to people in Nyrond, but simply someone broker them and someone else buys them and move them either upriver or further east or somewhere else. So, yeah.
Yes, Patrick, both lighthouses, both adventures were successful. They cleared the lighthouses out and got rid of the bad guys. So they're back in Hardby Marines' hands for the time being. Gotta have fun with that. So
yeah, and lighthouses is one thing that could be even bigger in a fantasy world than in the real world, because you have continual light, you have daylight spells and stuff like that can give, and you can have like magic directed light and stuff that might make lighthouses even more powerful and more visible. And you can have audio spells that can yell out like the foghorns of more of the modern world. So you can have a fantasy equivalent of a lot of that makes lighthouses might be more common in Greyhawk than they were in medieval times. And there were lighthouses back in like Excel and Alexandria and other famous ones back in the day. So you can definitely have, and we have a few that are we have Corell's Watch on the Walworth Isle, and we have East Bright Sentry on Scragholm Isle. Those are a few, and we have the Shroud north of Greyhawk. Those are all mentioned to be lighthouses. So there are some lighthouses that are there to guide mariners and seafarers in that are mentioned in lore, so to speak.
How did I don't know why I pinned probably yes, that was a mistake. How did I pin that? Oh my gosh. Don't know what I did. So Mac had another question which I answered. What weird D&D materials would get traded in the Flanders that don't exist in the real world? Spell components and potion components. I mean, to create a potion of healing, actually, you need humanoid blood. To make longevity potions, you need elven blood. There's all sorts of crazy stuff.
Oh, yeah. And you could trade the final product, potions themselves.
Yeah.
Meaning that could be take big cities where you have temples and wizards and so on. They can manufacture potions, scrolls, magic items. They could be those can be the high-tech equivalent, meaning the top of the line goods, so to speak, that are very valuable and very difficult to manufacture and stuff. So the components to make these stuff is imported into big cities, where a lot of these craftsmen and wizards, priests and others that do these stuff, they tend to live in big cities because they are safe, and it's also where they can get the most bang for what they do, so to speak. They can earn the most because that's where their customers can be. And then what they do can either be bought on the market there and then often shipped away, or shipped to other places, so to speak. So I can see those are the highest value because they are the most enhanced, and they are highest in the value chain. They requires more work and investment to create magic items, and the equivalent in a fantasy world, that's like high-tech gear in the real world that requires more input, more labor, more resources to manufacture them. Yep.
So look at that, 950.
Yeah.
Wow. See, that flew by.
You see, there was, and I think it was a discussion. Hopefully, this was a discussion that gave a few ideas and stuff for people in their campaigns, so to speak.
So a quick pre-announcement. Please stick around for the raid, because I'm probably going to raid into Crane Rights tonight, and I'm trying to bribe Crane to play in the game tomorrow night. Okay, still I got one. All right, so just note. So stick around, say hi to her. Yeah, when we do that raid after the giveaway. So,
thank you.
Next last stream of the year. Tomorrow night's the last stream of the year, and then Sunday we'll talk about announcements. Sunday is strategy year in review for 2022. So, yeah. Anna, so we'll do some shout outs real quick, and then we'll go on to what we got cranking here. Coming up. So, Anna, what's up?
Well, the Atlas, it's 99% done. I just need to puzzle the pieces together in the PDF and then bundle it up and send it out to my patrons. So expect that tomorrow. Hopefully, I will get it all done. Today we had our electric meter went haywire, so they had to come and install a new one. So we lost power for a bit.
Oh, that stinks.
Yeah, so but it happens. I guess it was older. Maybe it was a routine. But anyway, yeah. So that they fixed that. So that's the next thing. Is the Atlas is basically all done. I just bundle it up and make sure that all the pieces are there in the right order, and then bundle it up into zip files and stuff like that and ship it out. So that is coming tomorrow, or so it's coming. And I'm going to the first, then I will go really hard to get the first compendium, heraldry compendium done. That's the next thing, and it's a lot of it is already done. So it's basically just to finish that one off too. Those are the two things that I promised myself to do this year, and it will be almost, I will stumble on the finishing line here. So it might be a day or two in for the heraldry compendium, a couple of days into next year, but the Atlas is coming out this year. So
Nice. That's awesome.
Yep. And I can also sneak peek is saying that this spring there will be a merch shop coming up, thanks to Noble Dwarf and stuff. And we're looking into prints of various kinds and stuff. So so there will be so I will talk a little bit about that on my Patreon blog and stuff in my yearly kind of summary, and then look into next year. That will come on New Year's Day or New Year's Eve or something like that. I'm working on that post too. So that will come during the spring. So that is a little bit. So
lots of great things.
Yep.
I'm excited about 2023. Definitely,
me too.
Anna. Definitely, you got too much going on, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. Too much going on.
Always way too much going on. So, I see. Wow, I'm off my game here. I should have been punching up some stuff here while you were talking, and I didn't.
Thank you, Gaetano. Thank you. Yep.
Yeah. And I took the map down. Give me 1 second.
Arcos Ren, thank you. Thank you, everybody. I'm so glad that you liked these one. They were a little bit babbly, but I think they are.
These discussions can are a lot of theoretical, but there's nothing wrong with that. You're getting some thought process out there of things that
like once every couple of months or something like that. I think it's good to have something like this. So I have a couple of other topics that we should look into next year. A couple of topics like this too. So
All right, so let me do this in reverse order. Boom. All right, and we'll get these all up, and then we should be good. Okay.
Yep, trade secrets, Patrick. Yep. And thank you, Arcos Ren. Yep, I'm with you. Yep.
Okay. All right. So what's going on? Let's see what's scheduled. All right. The following. So tomorrow night, The last adventure of 2022, number 984, called Finders Keepers.
Mm-hmm.
And I have only one of my regulars, and I have Bones and Darling, and I have Chuck Cumbo's 50-50, and then Crane is. I'm trying to get I'm trying to convince Crane to play with her character, but we got it covered no matter what. We're in Narwhal, so if you recall the last adventure where you had uh, Darling's character Phil, the gnome. The gnome is
Mm-hmm.
trying to hook up with everyone, and then Onweir, who's Bones' thief, they've made it from Blue Bay, right? Because they had to travel back themselves to Narwhal, and they stopped in Narwhal, where something has been found out about concerning Baron Janston, who's kind of a little underhanded.
Mm-hmm.
Walt's character Lindara is kind of a spy, has found something out, and needs the service of a couple of thieves. Well, guess what? Those two characters are. They're thieves. So that'll be the adventure
Awesome.
tomorrow night, and that's why it's called
Yep.
Finders Keepers, and that's
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow night. Then the next one, I think New Year's Day, the night of New Year's, we will do a gabbing, and we're going to do our year in review 2022. I'll get a whole bunch of pictures up from whatever I have from 2022, Gary conventions, fundraisers, and we'll talk about the what a great year 2022 has been, and that'll
Yep.
be
Mm-hmm.
Sunday night, and that'll be the first stream of 2022. The only other thing I
Or
have
2023. Yep.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. Year in review 2022, first one of 2023. Absolutely.
Yep.
The only other thing that's scheduled right now is a special event for a week from Saturday, and that's Tim's group will continue the
Oh.
underdogs Saturday
Mm-hmm.
morning, January 7th. That is
Evil or
that is scheduled to go
strange.
on. Yes, he likes the strangeness stuff. That's the name of the
Yep.
adventure. The
Mm-hmm.
underdogs continue on a week from Saturday. So we'll have four
Cool.
streams that week because we'll have our
Yep.
Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. So
Yep.
yep.
Yep. We don't have a Legends and Lore topic for next week, so we
Not
have to
yet.
figure that out. Yep.
No,
Mm-hmm.
but we'll get one. We'll get
Yep.
one. We
Mm-hmm.
always think we're not going to have one, and we figure
Yeah.
something out.
And then.
And we'll
Yep.
push Dale for my Greyhawk. We're still trying to, him and his
Oh
brother.
yeah,
On
we
for
need to
my
get him
the my
on. That will
Greyhawk.
be
Yeah,
fantastic. Yep. We
yeah.
need to. Yep.
We need
Mm-hmm.
that to happen. So that's what's going on. We had on a Monday and a special event. So they have something on their heads. I don't know what they have. They have they're like I said, Tim's not playing with a full deck. If known him as long as I have, but that's okay. It's to be expected. So let's see who wins the giveaway tonight. Get your choice here. I got some really good Necromancer Games ones too. Like the Tomb of Abasthor and Chaos Rising are both great options as well if you have all the Greyhawk ones. So yeah, pick one later January and we'll be good to go. Okay,
Oh,
all right,
awesome. Yep.
all right. Why don't you tell Dale? Why don't you tell me the
Yep.
Wednesday you want to do? It works
Mm-hmm.
better that way instead of me
Yep.
going. How about this? How about this? Just
Yep.
tell me which ones work for you via Discord. Okay, cool.
Yep. Perfect.
Awesome. All right, gonna close this out. That's cool. And I was playing with a full deck. I don't know, man. After that battle, those two BattleTech games, Patrick, your guys and Phantom and all kicked the shit out of me. It was brutal. So I'm not playing with a full deck anymore here. All right, closing this out. If I hit the right button, let's see who wins tonight. Oh, and tomorrow night, Stratagem Wiz Dice giveaway tomorrow night at least. We also have the Ruin Rookery, the person who won it, which was Dale. It doesn't have a 3D printer, so I'm going to re-put that one up. So we'll have at least two, but we'll probably have more giveaways tomorrow night. So the winner is a cow staff. Grats!
Oh, awesome!
Grats! And by the way, thanks for setting up that Greyhawk. There's a Greyhawk subgroup on Twitter now.
Yes, I saw that.
Yes,
yep.
I'm part of, and Cal stuff. So
Yep.
you let me know. The main one is the Scarlet Brotherhood reprint. But if you don't, you just reach out to me via Whisper here or Discord and let me know what you want. I do have Showcant still, Palace of the Silver Princess, Baltron's Beacon, and Scarlet Brotherhood and a couple other good ones. So you just let me know. All right, let's raid in. Thanks a lot for a great show, everyone. Really appreciate the participation. Lots of questions. All right, well, do you have either of these? Do you have that? These are great. You can ask Dale. Do you have Abasthor or do you have Chaos Rising? I've run both these. They're awesome. This is this is like one of the best adventures of all time.
Abasthor. Okay.
Tomb of Abasthor is awesome. So you want Chaos Rising? Got it. So Cal Steph, I'll reach out to you if I don't have your address, but I think I do. We'll check that.
Thank you,
So.
everyone. Yep.
All right,
Thank
let's
you for all-
let's raid into Crane, and then I will say, hey, this is bribery, and we'll see what happens. So, and yep, see you tomorrow night, 7:30, everyone. Anna, thanks for a great show.
Oh,
See
thank you.
Yep,
Yep.
I had a blast tonight. Another success. And too bad Mike wasn't on, but Mike will be back next week.
Yep.
I'm looking for the right button to hit. This one, I think. Awesome. I should have it, Cal Steph. If I don't, sometimes they get a race in the U.S. Postal Service thing. So, yeah, it just gets weird. So, raid. Let's get it. We get over 85. That'd be awesome. Running game Tails of Terminus. She's very talented. Awesome. That's great. 73. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See you tomorrow night.
75.
Yeah, 75's good.
That's not bad. Yeah, it's okay. It's a decent one, a normal one. Yeah, these days. Yeah.